Hello, and welcome to the next webinar of our series where we introduce our audience to growing and upcoming startups, thus giving a glimpse into the booming Canadian business world. I would like to introduce Josh, the CEO and co founder of Visto, a platform which is a boon for immigration professionals. What makes this startup unique is that it focuses on simplifying and optimizing the study visa preparation and filing process using AI and manages the entire life cycle of the process. I would begin by requesting Josh to give a short introduction to himself and what prompted him to come up with Visto.
Yeah, thank you,
Josh,
Shashwat, and thank
please.
you for having me on the show. I'm based in Toronto. I'm a Canadian immigration lawyer. So I started my career as a regular immigration lawyer might, doing the standard work, study permits, work permits, permanent residence, that kind of stuff. And I was doing a lot of work for Canadian tech companies. I was helping tech companies bring mostly tech workers into Canada on work permits. And then after a few years of doing that and filling out the same forms over and over again, I started looking at my clients and saying, wow, these are really great tech companies, automating and improving all these industries. Why is nobody building anything in the immigration space that I thought begged for, there were a lot of opportunities, right, to leverage technology to improve on a lot of processes. So that was about 3 years ago, and that's when we kind of started the company and started automating different parts of Canadian immigration. And here we are, and it's a lot of fun. Immigration in Canada is big. Merging the two, tech plus immigration, is a fun place to play in right now.
Yep, that was a great introduction, and I really hope to learn more about Visto. So that brings me to our next question, where I would request you to give a background to Visto and the kind of services it provides. I will also like you to focus a little whether it can be used directly by student visa aspirants, or is it more towards immigration professionals who are processing everything on their behalf.
Yeah, so we've had an interesting experience. We've tried some different kind of tools and approaches over the years. We've built immigration calculators and qualification tools and B2B, B2C, et cetera, et cetera. And where we've kind of settled in right now is we pick one visa at a time and we automate the crap out of it, right? So we go A to Z, every document, every form, every requirement. And for right now, we've fully automated the study permit process. To answer your second question, it can be used both B2B and B2C. So if a student is, aspiring to come to Canada, they get their acceptance from one of the schools, they want to get working on their study visa process, they don't want to pay a lawyer or consultant, then they can use our tool similar to like a TurboTax would help you file your taxes. Visto can help you prep and file the entire study permit. But we also offer it B2B, wherein immigration professionals, people that are prepping a lot of study permits, can use the software to prep them in half the time and usually make them twice as good, because of things like automation, AI, and that kind of stuff. So there's a few use cases for it. We've gotten pretty good feedback from both. I've yet to see something automate one particular visa full stop, like A to Z, like ours has. And now we're in the process actually of adding in another visa. So we're automating the TRV, temporary resident visa, aka the visitor visa. Again, both for individuals that may want to visit Canada and especially for professionals that do a lot of visitor visa applications for clients.
Okay, that was quite an interesting thing which you have told us, because well, a lot of people do travel to Canada, and I've seen that some of the areas in Canada are quite pretty, such as Banff or all the places with those natural beauty. And if you are able to get the visitor visa process automated as well, that will be quite an amazing thing. So now we will move on towards the questions relating to more towards the legal tech field in which you are focusing. And considering that your startup has a global application, because there are a lot of people coming from all over the world, What marketing techniques do you use in order to maximize outreach? Do you have any suggestions relating to marketing, in particularly in the legal tech field, which you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, marketing legal tech can be tough because you're often trying to boil down what may be a very complex process into a simple solution, right? So I think the key is, at least for us and probably many other legal tech companies, is how do you present something that can be and maybe normally is a very complex and confusing process, but make your solution appear to be that much simpler, right? So in immigration specifically, I think social is huge, social media, right? So for example, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I have, our Visto TikTok account is pretty good. We have a lot of followers and a lot of viewers because if there's enough people that want what you're talking about, in our case, immigrating to Canada or visiting Canada or studying in Canada, as you know, certain parts of the world, that is very popular, right? A lot of people really want to do that and have a lot of questions about that. So our approach has been to answer those questions, right? To insert ourselves and insert myself into the conversation of, hey, we want to come to Canada. Who's a company I can actually rely on to get answers to my questions? And that's how you start building trust with people, right? And getting your brand into their minds, right? So for example, if you have somebody who's in India and wants to come study in Canada, they're going to have a lot of questions, just like anybody would, right? How much does it cost? What's the process like? How cold is it in Canada? Do I need this document or that document? Can I bring my spouse? Do I have to, what does proof of ties to home country mean, et cetera, right? So on the marketing side, what we mostly focus on is providing really helpful information in a digestive way through things like short videos on TikTok, me posting or going live on LinkedIn. And it does two things. It educates your audience and it builds trust, right? Because they might not be ready to pull the trigger that day, but if they're following you, they're getting insight, a couple weeks go by, maybe a couple months go by. Okay, now I'm ready. Who's the first person that's going to pop into their head, right? You want the answer to be you, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been watching this guy, Josh, for like 4 months. He really knows what he's talking about. He seems trustworthy. Let me go check out the website and see if that's a good fit, right? So you're starting from, a higher level in their head. We do traditional outbound sales stuff as well, too. Cold email, cold marketing, cold calling, that kind of stuff. More on the B2B side. So marketing, I find, works much better if you're taking a B2C approach, whereas sales tends to work a little bit better on the B2B side. Of course, there's different factors at play, depending on what you're selling and how expensive it is and what the target audience is like, what the different, segments are like. But in general, in the immigration tech world, we've found that social is really good for marketing. And then, B2B is more traditional outbound sales.
Well, definitely. And I believe that building a brand in today's time is really, really important, especially with the coming of digitalization, where a lot of people actually do put in a lot of work in building your brand. So, building a different identity for yourself, sometimes it can be challenging, and it becomes really important that you know that you are very clear on what you are going to focus on and build content accordingly. And well, definitely, educating the people will actually give you a better chance of gaining their trust. And well, that's how you build business. Okay,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah. The only correction I would make, Shashwat, is you don't have to change yourself into a new person, right?
yeah,
Just be yourself, because that's what people want, right? If you're trying to solve their problem, people don't genuine authenticity will get you much farther than molding yourself into something you're not, right? So people like and follow
definitely.
us because I just turn on the camera and I just talk, right? In fact, if you follow us on TikTok at Visto.ai, you'll be super unimpressed by the production value, right? Like it's Josh sitting in his stupid t-shirt in my office filming, right? But people like it and follow it because I'm answering the most important questions and I'm giving them my genuine feedback and thoughts and guidance, right? So if you're looking for dancing and singing, maybe don't follow us. But if you're looking for real, authentic, Canadian immigration advice and news and updates and that kind of stuff, then, check us out.
Oh, well, definitely. I think that authenticity is what is actually required, because appearance can be put up only for a certain amount of time. Eventually, the truth does come out. So you have to be
Oh yeah.
your authentic self. You
And
want
people
to
can
really
tell,
reach it.
right?
Yeah,
If people are very smart, right? Especially in video, right? Audio is
definitely.
one thing, but video, they can see your face. Humans are smart, right? You can tell within a few videos if somebody's authentic or they're just talking out of their behind or whatever. So anyways, totally agree.
Definitely. So this brings me to the next question, which is more towards tech and business in general. As you had initially introduced us and told that you would get a lot of people who wanted to get into tech as an immigration lawyer. So this question is more based towards tech and the business field in Canada. So, what is your general opinion about the booming tech business world in Canada? And like, what is your opinion on the scope for it in the future? Like, do you think that in the next 5, 10 years, tech will really boom and actually help revolutionize how we live our daily lives?
Yeah, I think if you deny that, then you're probably just a little bit out of touch with reality, right? I mean, you see it everywhere. The question is, how fast will it affect different industries? So when you talk about legal tech, I would probably argue that legal tech may be if not one of the top one or two slowest evolving industries in terms of technology, right? You look at fintech and prop tech and this tech and that tech and martech and whatever, right? And a lot of them have been booming like crazy for a long time, right? Some of them years and years and years. Um, Legal tech has really only started to show itself the last couple of years, right? I mean, you get the Clios of the world. Like you could probably name on one hand the big legal tech companies, right? So and that can be a good thing if you're sitting on if you're watching this video right now and you're a lawyer and you're interested in getting into tech, that's good news because it means there's a lot of opportunity, right? There's a lot of things that have yet to be automated, that have yet to had AI applied to them, that have yet to have a platform built to make them better, right? My best thesis there is that lawyers, number one, are inherently not very innovative, right? I'm allowed to say that because I'm a lawyer, right? And I have very many friends who are lawyers and I've worked at a law firm, blah, blah, blah. Inherently, lawyers are trained to be conservative, right? And point out what's wrong and what could go wrong, et cetera, et cetera. So it's of no surprise that we don't have an army of lawyers building technology, right? The other part too is depending on industry and parts of the world, lawyers are pretty well compensated, right? So the problem with that is there's less of an incentive to go leave your six-figure job and take a co-founder salary and risk everything on a startup, right? So I think it's
Definitely.
those two factors, not being too innovative to begin with, although I'm starting to see this shift, and less of an incentive that legal tech has lagged behind most industries, but it's slowly starting to change. We see it every day. So Visto is a member of an organization called the Legal Innovation Zone, based in Toronto, at TMU at the university in downtown Toronto, and it's basically a cohort of a whole bunch of legal tech companies. So we're very in touch with what else is going on, and there's a lot of really great legal tech companies being built, but it's lagged, right? It's lagged behind a lot of the other different tech industries. But within the next 5, 10 years, yeah, I mean, everything's going to be automated, right? In one way or another at some point or another. So it's just a matter of who and how quickly and how good it's going to be. So if you're a lawyer out there thinking about it, I don't know, go find a friend who's a developer, because
Yeah.
there's developers out there that are really good at developing, but they may not have an idea, or they may not know of a big problem to solve. That's how I met, well, I didn't meet, but that's how I ended up partnering up with our now CTO, Alex, is a friend of mine from back home, right? Really great developer, always wanted to start his own startup, didn't have an idea or like a big problem to solve. So, you know, like the perfect co-founding team is the match between a great developer and a domain expert, and 1 + 1 = 4, right? So
Definitely.
if you're in legal right now, if you're a lawyer right now, you're bored of your job, you hate, you know, billing hourly, whatever, start thinking about, I would do two things. Number one, start thinking about what are the biggest pain points that you're having or your clients are having. Number two, you know, how could maybe technology solve that? And number three, start networking. Like go to like tech meetups and talk to that old friend that you know is, you know, did software engineering in school, whatever, and just start conversations, right? That stuff, it's not magic. It's not going to happen instantly, but over time, you never know what opportunities could come out of it.
Well, definitely, it is quite an insight which you have given to me and the audience here. Because definitely, as lawyers, we are often told to think in a certain compartmentalized way. And it is really important, especially with the coming of tech, to think out of the box and try to solve as many problems as we can, because ultimately our goal as a lawyer, I believe, is to help give our clients the best solutions possible. And if we can use tech to actually help make it better, quicker, and more developed, so it will definitely be helpful. So this comes to my next question, that as Visto is an AI-based startup, do you think AI will actually revolutionize the legal field? And but sometimes a lot of people also have an opinion that with the coming of AI, a lot of clerical jobs might get obsolete. Do you think it will have an impact on the legal field as well? Like,
Yeah, it's going
that's
to impact everything, right? I mean, if you don't think that it's going to happen, again, I think you're short-sighted, and I think you're going to get run over. Are all the clerical jobs going to be replaced? Probably. I mean, why don't we go out and hand pick, you know, wheat anymore? Because somebody made a tractor, right? Somebody invented
yeah,
some piece of technology that could do it better, right? So if you're denying AI replacing certain tasks, you're just denying all the pieces of technology that have previously replaced jobs, right? But the
definitely.
good thing is that new jobs will be created, right? People look at it from one point of view, which is robots are coming and they're taking all of our jobs, right? But what they don't then think is, okay, well, if robots are coming, what else will we need people to do? To build the robots, service the
Definitely.
robots, train the robots, interface between the robot and clients. Like there's going to be so many other jobs and companies that stem from it, right? So stop looking at it. Now, there's a whole like other like ethics and moral part of this conversation, which maybe we don't want to get into today, which is like, what if the robots get crazy? You know, like that, maybe that's for another time. I don't know.
Yeah,
But let's assume they're friendly robots, right? And they're designed in a friendly way. Now you don't have to hire a clerk to do basic stupid things that a clerk doesn't even need to do anyways, right? I mean, the first thing we did was automate pre-filling forms. Why do we have admin staff copy
yeah,
pasting information on PDFs, right? What is good about that? Nothing, right? Let's have robots do that, or you know, internet AI, whatever you want to call it, and let's focus on actual value adding things and companies. We've already integrated AI a little bit, and it's just the beginning, right? So, and it's only for the better, again, because now we can focus on doing everything faster, providing more value to the clients. If you don't do it, your competitor's going to do it, right? So that's the other thing. You can sit at home and be like, oh, AI is scary. Oh, it's not ethical. Oh, I don't want to take people's jobs. Good luck, because all your competitors are going to use it and they're going to be able to provide better services faster for cheaper. And you'll probably, you know, you won't survive, or you won't be able to compete, right? So there's those two elements, right? Number one is just like the harsh reality of this is just evolution, technical evolution. It's not going anywhere. It's only going to get probably better even faster. And secondly is if we're talking from a business point of view, someone else is probably already doing what you're thinking of maybe implementing with AI, right? There's probably 10 other
Definitely.
companies already doing it. So either jump on and make the most of it, or be the blockbuster, right? Blockbuster has what? They have one,
One store in the world.
one store just as like a meme, I think, at this point, right? So do you want to be the Netflix or the Blockbuster, right? And some people might.
Definitely.
I don't know. Some people might. By all means, I'm not saying people have to do this, but if you want to stay competitive and be here for the next 5, 10, 50 years, it's not going away, right? It's not going away. Just like the internet didn't go away. It's the opposite.
Definitely. I think once there was a time when people used to consider that internet will be a fad, which will eventually fade away. But the way it
Yep.
has become a part of our lives, it is amazing. The fact that we are able to have this conversation is all because of the internet. And it definitely has given us an opportunity to get various ideas and insights together, through which we are able to get some amazing things and outcomes. And like, for example, just this webinar where we are able to educate so many people about our startup and our ideas. And actually, I'm sure we will be motivating a lot of people to come up with new ideas and actually start thinking out of the box. So, this brings me to our next question, which is more towards the amalgamation of global cultures in Canada. It is often said that Canada is a melting pot for global cultures. Do you believe that the influx of international talent into Canada will help bolster innovative tech startups, which may incorporate elements unique to the culture they come from?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I've lived it, right? I'm born and raised in Canada. I've only ever lived in Canada. Yeah, I'm in my 30s, so it's been a few decades. But this isn't new, right? Immigrants have been a huge part of Canada since inception, right? Since the country was created. And thankfully, throughout the years, the country has remained extremely immigrant friendly, right? Especially in relation to countries like, our neighbors to the south. So you see it every day, right? You see it just go walk down the street, right? And you see it, the different markets, the different restaurants, the different people you're shaking hands with. I'm having meetings, partnership meetings, client meetings with Canadian companies. It's a huge melting pot, right?
Definitely.
People from all over the world. I mean, you can guess a lot of the countries that are kind of like the biggest sources of talent to Canada. And you also see it in like the big name, fast growing tech companies. Just go look at the co-founders, right? It's usually a mix, right? It's not a huge co-founding team of white men, right? It's a good
Definitely.
mix of background, home country, gender, et cetera, right? So we've seen it time and time again as well in reports. The statistics show having diverse talent, diverse people, like I've been working in immigration now for over 6 years. It's funny because you can actually tell when you spend enough time with enough people from a different country, you can actually see how their brains work differently, right? When you're brought up a certain way in a certain country that's totally different, is just like a different mindset and approach, right, to different things. So, for example, like Canadians, we're pretty conservative, right? We're pretty polite, we're pretty conservative, and that has pros and cons. Whereas certain people from other countries are a little bit different, right? They might be as polite, but they're a little more aggressive. Maybe not, not necessarily in a bad way. They're more, they're hustling, they're moving fast, fast, fast. Just ways that people email differently, the greetings that they use, right? The way that they text, the way that they start or end a phone call, right? It's super interesting. And I think the more of those different types of people you have at a boardroom. So for example, I'm trying to grow a company. Eventually you hire more and more staff. And okay, we have a weekly meeting and you sit down at the meeting and you want people's opinions. You don't want 10 white 30-year-old males who grew up in Toronto, right? You have
Yeah.
a huge benefit of having a 40-year-old woman who grew up in India, right? A 26-year-old guy who grew up in Brazil, a 32-year-old, what, you know what I mean? Like, just
Yeah,
think
definitely.
of all those different experiences and cultures you can now rely on in decision making and idea sharing. So yeah, I mean, similar to tech, if you're not embracing diversity as well, then you're probably missing out. But I mean, that's for people to decide, right? People can hire who they want, but the statistics, the reports show that more diverse teams outperform less diverse teams, right? So
Definitely.
anyways, that's my thought
And
there.
that was quite an interesting conversation, because I think, especially considering that the Canadian government's impetus to get more immigrants and actually expand Canada and get more economic growth and development, they have introduced a couple of new programs as well. And I think that it is quite important to embrace diversity and together move towards the economic growth and development of Canada. Uh, in continuation to the previous question, do you have any pointers you would want to give any upcoming entrepreneurs who have immigrated to Canada from other countries and they plan to start their own business? And so, do you have any pointers or any ideas which you would like to give, especially for people entering into the tech market? And also, I would like you to focus a little more towards how they should navigate the Canadian market. Because being an immigration lawyer, you must have seen that a lot of immigrants, when they come from diverse cultures, it may take some time to get used to the Canadian way of life. And so, any pointers towards that will be quite helpful as
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I certainly have a lot of thoughts because I've started now a couple businesses, right? I started out with a law firm of my own. Now, with Visto, with our tech company. I would say a few factors to keep in mind. Number one is Canada's a small country, right? By population, not by geographically, it's a huge country. But by population, we're a tenth of the size of the US. If you're coming from India, China, we're a P, right? Like the market size is much smaller. So you have to take that into account when you're doing your kind of like initial market analysis and business plan, right? Like, for example, if you want to come to Canada, if you're moving here from India and you want to start a B2C tech company, you better keep in mind and do the math that our population's, like, I think, just still a little bit under 40 million, right? We don't have
well.
a billion and 1.2, or I'm not sure what the numbers are right now. I think around like 1.2, 1.3 billion people,
Yeah,
right? So B2C tech is very difficult and expensive to scale in Canada, right? As compared to some of those other countries. So that's number one. Number two is geographically, we're a huge country and very spread out, right? So again, you want to keep that in mind. It's where you're going to put your offices if there's shipping involved, right? Like shipping from Toronto to Vancouver, it can be a pain, right? I don't know what the fees are because we don't ship physical
yeah,
products, but something else to keep in mind. Canadian people are conservative. So if you're building new technology, you're going to have to do some convincing, right? And we've learned this the hard way over the last 3 years, right? You're going to have to convince people to adopt and potentially pay for your new technology. But Canadian people are not, shoot from the hip, cowboy-esque, like they might be a little bit more so in the US or, in other parts of the world, where they might,
yeah,
take a chance and pay for that B2B SaaS or whatever, right? They can. There's been plenty of B2B SaaS companies that have done well in Canada, right? But again, something to keep in mind. The last thing I'll mention is this is specific to tech, and it's probably a mistake that we've now made a couple times that I'll never make again, is don't build until you're convinced people will pay for it. And when I say build,
definitely.
I mean technology, right? The biggest mistake that probably we've made, and more small startups or would have been startups than ever before. I even read about this on Reddit and like all these other communities, right?
Yeah,
Don't think you have a great idea and go build a product, right? You may have a great idea. Please go validate it first, right? Either in the form of like 500 interviews, 2, 3, 4, 500 interviews where you could potentially even get somebody to sign something or give you their credit card, or go use one of the million no-code tools that are out there now and like hack something up within a week and again try to sell it. Like, can you get the credit card, right? Don't build any custom software until you're convinced that people will pay you for it. And when I say
Definitely.
convinced, I don't mean that like your mom and her best friend said that it's cool and you know they gave you $10, right? I mean, like, go show it to 50, 100, 200, 300 people and get early indicators that they will actually pay you money for it, or it can lead to revenue, right? Maybe it's like a B2C play where it's like a free app and then you monetize on the back end, you know, whatever. Show some semblance of revenue before you do anything else, even if you're a dev or even
Yeah.
if you're a pair, right? So I alluded to it earlier, like the best marriage is between a developer who can build something and a domain expert who can help design the whole thing and understands the market, et cetera, et cetera. Even if you have that perfect duo, the dev should just hack up a no-code tool, use Google Forms, use Bubble, use whatever, right? There's a million, use Zapier, there's a million tools out there now. If it shouldn't take more than a week, hack up something, create a Stripe account, and go try to get clients. And if you can do that and you see some traction, then start custom building.
Definitely.
Otherwise, don't write a line of code.
Definitely. I think it is quite an important insight because often in developing a business, you need to have a lot of investment of both time, resources, and when you and learning that it is not going to work, or it can be quite demotivating for the person later on a later stage. So if at the initial stage only you can find out more about its applications, you can actually work on it. Maybe you may have an idea, but a slight modification may make it actually a commercial success. So definitely, I think that it is quite an helpful idea from you, which will not only be applicable towards people who are coming from abroad into Canada, but also generally for any person who wants to start a business. Before we end our session, do you have any other quips or general points or any ideas which you would like to share with the entrepreneurs and innovators who might be viewing our webinar? And also for people who already have a business and are hoping to expand, considering from your experience with Visto.ai that you may have learned.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Vista, I've worked with many like before I was. Now I only do tech, right? I don't practice anymore as an immigration lawyer. But when I was practicing, I'd worked with many immigrants who moved or expanded their business into Canada as a means of expanding and moving them and maybe their families into Canada. So if you're looking to like break into North America, or just Canada. I mean, Canada's a great option, right? Because Canadian immigration is way friendlier than the US, right?
Definitely.
So even just expanding into Canada as a proxy to start selling into the US can be a really good strategy. So, I mean, if you have any questions, you know, that probably those are very much case by case, right? I can introduce them to another lawyer that I work closely with, and she could provide, you know, more services there. But I think North America is a great place to live. I think Canada is a great place to live. I think it, for the most part, will continue to be, especially as the world heats up. You know, we got plenty of room here, and you know, maybe the winters become a little bit easier to bear as things warm up a little bit. But in general, I think more people should just follow their curiosities. If you're an employee and you're not happy and you have an itch, you know there's something more out there, you think at heart you could make it as an entrepreneur, then start taking some action, right? I don't have specifics because everybody's different and everyone's in a different situation and your finances might be different and you might have to keep your job because you have bills to pay, or you might be older or younger or whatever. But all I would say is, if you're not an entrepreneur, but you're not so thrilled with what you do every day, start spending even just a little bit of time every week, or 20 minutes a day, an hour a day after work, start networking with people, start doing research, start tinkering with these new AI. It doesn't have to be AI, but like tinkering with these new AI tools. Think about what really gets you excited. Where are you spending your time on on the weekends, right? But that overlap with tech somehow, right? Start talking to more people, go attend networking events or like tech events or startup events, just have conversations with people. There's so many opportunities out there. There's so many smart people, or there might even be a cool startup that's just forming that needs
Yeah,
someone like you as the last piece, right? Put yourself out there, right? It's like Steve Jobs said, like, if you wake up a few days in a row and you look yourself in the mirror and you're just not excited with what you're about to do, you got to make a change. No one's going to change it for you, right? For the entrepreneurs, no one's going to do it for you, which is probably one of the hardest lessons that I've learned in tech and non-tech, right? Is like, it's such a grind, right? Probably the most important quality you can have and build upon is just consistency and hard work, right? You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to have brilliant ideas. You don't have to invent the next Facebook or OpenAI. You just need to find one problem, get really good at solving it, make sure it's actually monetizable, and then just don't stop. There's so many bumps along the way, right? Like the only thing you can guarantee is that you will struggle. There will be a lot of no's. There will be probably a pivot or two, especially if you're in tech. You will pivot, you will learn along the way. Um, but heck, if you don't do it, who else will, right? Who else will? And at the end of the day, if you can look back and say that you gave it your best shot, whether you succeeded or not, you're going to have learned a lot, and you're going to have a lot to show for it. You're going to have a lot to talk about, and you'll be happy looking back on it. Down, you can always go get another job or whatever if you have to, right? So, anyways, bit of a rant, but yeah, I just think we need more people doing cool stuff, more smart people
definitely.
doing cool stuff.
Definitely. And I think that when people actually start thinking more towards the way you have talked, it will actually help us get with more innovative ideas. And I believe that the human mind has great potential to do a lot of amazing things. If we look maybe a century before, the way of life is drastically different. Like I'm sure our ancestors would not even be able to imagine the way we are living today. And this is all because of the innovative human mind. And the more we foster it, the more we encourage it, the better things will definitely come out. And I believe that every single human being on this planet is capable of doing something great and amazing. And I believe that it is our duty to ensure that we can grow up to our full potential. With this, I would really like to thank you for taking out your valuable time today. And I would really love to have you for our future sessions because I believe that you have so much to share. And it will be a great and enlightening experience for everyone to hear more and more from you. So, really, really
Thank you,
thank you
Shashwat.
for
Yeah. It was great to be on. Thank you for the invite. I'm happy to help again if I can. If people are interested in the tech we're building, they can find us at Visto.ai. And similarly to what we were talking about, I spend a little bit of time each week kind of sharing my journey. So I have a business blog. We'll put it in the show notes. It's called solopreneurgrind.com. I've kind of graduated beyond solopreneurship, but I'm in too deep with that domain, so I haven't switched it. But basically, what I do there is I share my journey. I talk about the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, what I'm learning along the way, business books that I'm reading along the way, and stuff like that. So if people are more curious in like the business journey, I do a little bit of blogging and podcasting, like talking about my journey there. Maybe they're interested. And yeah, I hope to continue the conversation. I hope that this, maybe inspires some people to get started or keep working even harder at what they're doing, because it can be a lonely journey, right? It can be a lonely, difficult journey. And so sometimes even knowing that there's other people out there going through it as well can help you sleep a little bit better at night and wake up a little bit more excited in the morning, you know?
Definitely, I think in today's world, one cannot work independently. Like ultimately, if even if you're developing an amazing product, you have to sell it into the society. And the more inclusive you are, the better ideas you can get. And like we had previously discussed, that it is really important to ensure that whatever product you are developing, it will actually be accepted by the community. So the more number of views you have, the more you interact, you definitely can do a lot better. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have an amazing day today.
Thanks, Joshua. Thank you again for having me on, and